Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter, joined once again by Dylan Ferguson. Dylan, how's it going?
Going great now that there's new Vanderpump out there.
Yeah,
that's all I've been waiting for.
back.
This is my Christmas morning.
Yeah, I am very stoked. This felt like the Super Bowl for me. And I was feeling a little like, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect going into this. I was feeling a bit reserved just because there's been so much like offline talk about or online talk about what has been going on off camera. But I feel like it delivered. We'll get into it right away, but we are joined once again by Sean O'Rourke. Sean, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me back. Oh, wait, I got to do a thing. Hit that shit.
Is that Citrus Puss?
Sean, you were with us for our Vanderpump journey last season. You joined us for, I think, 1 or 2 episodes during season 10 and then for our reunion coverage. So you've got some context going into this. I want to just let's start right with it. What were you expecting going into this before watching?
I was expecting a lot of fireworks. I think that not having Sandoval actually show up is a good choice, but I was kind of hoping for just like getting me right into it and showing me some conflict between him and Ariana right off the bat. In retrospect, I like that it's going to play out a bit more.
Yeah, totally. Dylan, what I think Sean brings up like one of the most, like the biggest choice that was made when constructing this episode was to leave Sandoval out of it until the very end. And what did you think about that decision?
I think it's a great choice. For one thing, because it gives us an amazing cliffhanger at the end when he shows up and wanders into the apartment. But also, I think it's a smart choice to let us kind of check in with the other characters and kind of see where they are before like the grenade of Sandoval's presence gets thrown in among them. Like just to give us a bit of a sense of where everybody's at first. So we have that kind of baseline understanding of how everybody's feeling, how they've been doing since. I think that's going to be important going forward, that we kind of have some of that characterization established first.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the things that really stood out to me about this was it kind of allowed like Tom Sandoval, the on-screen villain, to be built up because Tom Sandoval, the off-screen villain, like the online villain, has been this like dominating force in the discourse online. And if we were to get him like right out of the gate, everything would be colored by our perspective offline, by all that context that we have going into this. This allowed the story to sort of reframe him in the way that they want to going forward in this season. So I thought it was a really strong choice. And also to like get him, kind of slink in under the cover of night, this like new villain emerging. I thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
Let's before we get into it, we're going to repurpose our Housewives in the Hurry. I don't know what we're going to call for Vanderpump rules, like Swift servers, or I don't know, but we're going to give Sean 20 seconds to 20 seconds to recap as much as he can remember from this episode, and your time is going to start right now.
Okay, we get a check-in with how everybody's doing really quick. James and Allie have a house near the airport. Tom Schwartz has plants. Sandoval's in New Zealand. There's a girls' night where there's empathy between Lala for Raquel. Oh, I missed something in there.
You got a lot of it.
No, that's really good. Yeah, you covered a lot of it. So what was your standout moments here, Sean? Your what was the centerpiece of this for you?
I think probably the girls' night when Lala is trying to reconcile like her empathy for Raquel's position as like the other woman, and wanting to maintain her relationship with Ariana and the gals. I like how that played out quite a bit. I also like that they got like a bunch of fried food, which you don't normally see them getting.
Yeah, comfort food.
True. Yeah, I just liked that a lot. Like Lala in that place of like wanting to be loyal to Ariana, but having to navigate like all of these other relationships. And the other thing that stood out was how just Tom Schwartz's whole energy of the episode. It's not really one thing, but his divorced guy energy is manifesting as this really weird nesting. Like he's a plant dad and he loves the candles.
And he has bugs
he's
now.
sort of evangelical about it. And his pet bugs, the Beatles.
That's such a great little
I'm like, we got some teasers about like what's going to happen with Schwartz, I think. But like for what we have in this episode, I'm really pumped to see how his life just goes for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. You brought up the girls' night scene, which I think is a good segue into discussing just how this piece of art was put together, because that was one of my standout scenes here. One of the things that I really appreciated about this scene was how like they used like a LUT. The way they managed the color was everything was like really crushed, but all the women here were dressed in either black or white, and it kind of really spoke to the binary perspective that all these characters around the table had about this situation. It was like, you know, there's good and then there's bad, and it was just like really, you know, true false way of looking at things, except for Lala, who had a gray shawl over top of her, and she was the one person that also was seeing this in a bit more of a gradient. There was this, this multifaceted view that was emerging and overcoming her, and she was seeing the dimension to the situation. And I just thought that it was really cool how it was how this scene was composed in this way, and it also, you know, the text of their conversation was very similar. Do either of you guys have anything that you want to call out in terms of how this was presented?
I do have two notes on how it's shot. Or two, like normally the visual aspects don't stand out as much to me in this kind of program, but I really like the way they shoot Sandoval coming in at the end, where we get like the shot of just his stupid little sneakers and then him from behind, and then there's him opening the door like through the plants. Nicer compositions than I'm used to. And I want to shout out the hero shots of everybody going into Tom Tom Club. Everybody gets a slowed down walk toward the camera, like almost Michael Bay without the camera spinning around kind of thing.
Yeah,
totally.
You know, you mentioned that Sandoval was in New Zealand. I forgot that's where he was. They should have had him like doing the Hobbit thing, where he's like walking on the ridge of mountaintops, and just like every once in a while, just like splice in like 30 seconds of that, like as they discuss him eventually coming back to LA.
But still dressed like an absolute prick.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dylan, what did you think about how this was presented?
I come to Vanderpump Rules expecting really cool impressionistic editing, and that's something that I've just come to expect from the show, and we get some of that. I really like the moment of I think right before a break they have like Ariana dancing in Tom Tom, trying to enjoy herself, and they intercut it with some like very quick snippets of like the Sandoval breaking and like her and Tom shouting at each other.
Yeah.
And I love the way that they like summon the like intrusion of this like irrepressible trauma, just like ruining her night through just editing. I think that's the kind of shit that the show is consistently good at, and I really enjoyed that.
Totally.
Yeah.
That scene
super fast, like the whole thing's fracturing in there too.
Yeah. That scene was like incredible, because that comes right off another beautiful scene in the Tom Tom alley, where it's got this like elevated platform that Lala's on, and it looks like the set of a Broadway production. Like when Lala comes off, like she enters from like the wing of a stage, and then she's elevated, and there's kind of two staircases that she can go down, and she stands in the middle of it, and we like look up at her, watching her make this phone call to Rachel. And I think that the way that this scene was put together was particularly stunning, and like you said, that emotional rapid intersplicing of frames of the Sandoval interrupting everyone's good time, and it's cut to the pace of the music, and it is still like clear that the Sandoval is what is driving everyone's emotion in this scene, and it is interrupting everything. I think, yeah, it's just a beautiful scene all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, did you guys have any other notes on presentation or anything like that?
Was Schwartz's bug dead? I guess it was a beetle. They play dead. That's what they do. They play dead.
Well,
maybe we should read into that. Schwartz himself is playing dead in a way. He's just trying to lay low. He doesn't afraid to stick his head up. Yeah.
I did think that there was actually a really interesting, some visual choices surrounding Schwartz that were interesting, particularly in the scene with James and Schwartz where they're having Schwartz is having a beer and James is having like 3 espressos.
Yeah.
But Schwartz was like in like neutrals and really consumed by the environment. Like we could see the bar was really cast in all these warm neutrals, and it kind of overtook Schwartz, whereas James, he was framed with the exterior behind him, and he was the only one bathed in like the sunlight to a degree, and there was like neon lights behind him, and he was just obviously framed separate from Schwartz throughout the beginning of that conversation. And then by the time that scene ends, it's shot from a perspective behind James so that he is in that neutral, and he's kind of brought into the same space as Schwartz. And I thought that was a good way of representing how the bond is kind of like tightening between them. Like James is kind of welcoming Schwartz back in, even though there's still some separation there. I appreciated that as well.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing in terms of interesting like visual storytelling that I picked up in this was the fact that the first cast members that we see in this, aside from the intro, is not the actual like people. It's art. It's framed art of Ariana and Sandoval that are still hanging up in their house, and that is also the exact same piece of art that is closed on in this. So I thought it was a really interesting choice to use that to bookend this, and I don't exactly know what that is representing, but I thought it was an interesting choice.
Well, I think it's kind of similar to like the discussion about having Schwartz and Sandy's as the name of the bar, like in that you've got they've built a brand around their groupings, and like they've got this like kind of iconic presentation. They've been on TV for years. They're doing restaurants and books together and stuff. And I think that's making it even harder to try to move on and adapt, just because they have got the weight of these partnerships, both Tom and Ariana, that are like more than just their partnerships, their company, their memories, but are also like brands and icons, like like a big framed image or like the name on top of the bar.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like, so this was a shot of Tom and Ariana that was in their house, and I think like maybe one way of reading that is, I was talking about that separation between, our online discourse and the figures of Tom and Ariana, and how they are, the heroes and villains of this online discourse. And I think that maybe that image of them, that very like still frozen image, could represent this idea of them as characters in this online discourse. And then when we finally do actually see them in real life or in the text of the show, that is their 3-dimensional form. So I think that's a really good possible read on that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive into our highlights on this. Sean, do you want to get us started with what your highlights were?
Yeah, like I said, like comedy Schwartz, big highlight. I think I focus most on probably Lala throughout the episode, which I don't normally do, but I'm just really interested in her, trying to reconcile how she feels between Ariana and are we going with Raquel or Rachel?
Rachel is what she prefers, so that's what we go with.
Okay, Rachel. See, I only have what's in the text. I've not been online yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly Lala, and I kind of want to see how that plays out, especially as we get like Rachel and Sandoval back in. Also, a very small highlight. I think it's in the very beginning. Ariana's making herself a latte, and there's a great little dig when she says, "No one ever did that for me." Because there's a very specific instance, I think, where Sandoval says that he buys her a latte as like an act of love, and I really
I think he says he makes her a dumpling latte was, I think, the specific term.
I believe it's I get her a dumpling latte.
Maybe, yeah. I see. I interpreted the line "nobody ever does that for me" in reference to her making like a little heart out of cinnamon or chocolate on top.
Yeah.
That's what I interpreted that as reference to. Like, I could do it myself, and I can make it even better than he made it because there's a little heart on it now.
Also, I think like the fact that they're still living together, I find very interesting, and I think that's going to make for really good TV for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently still living together. Like, that's not something that we'll see come to a close this season because they are still living in the same house and communicating through Tom's assistant, which is really funny.
That was a really funny bit of comedy where they have the little like shot of their messages, and Lala's like, the neighbors are saying the LED lights are bothering them, but the assistant texts us back, he says it falls under free speech.
Yeah.
Just like the perfect like shithead dumb guy response. Feels so bad for that assistant.
Yeah.
Totally. Dylan, what were your highlights?
The beetle, mostly. Really, I think it was actually a weevil. Now that I think of it, I think it had that long snout that a weevil did. Maybe that's why Schwartz is showing it. He's like, look, it's the lesser of two weevils, like me.
I'm gonna cut that. Shame on you.
Please do. Another highlight was the postcard that Rachel sent to Tom of the Arizona postcard with a bunch of like a little lightning storm. That was an amazing postcard. That was just a beautiful tacky postcard. I love that a lot. Schwartz was definitely the second most interesting character because it is fun to watch him still watch the journey of somebody who's built his whole personality around being likable, figure out how to deal now that he's like getting older and has found himself in a position where he's labeled as not somebody you're allowed to like, and he just doesn't really have anything else to fall back on. So it's going to be really interesting to see him like try to like rebuild his identity some ways through, hopefully there's more like beetles and terrariums and like, random shit that he starts getting as he tries to like
a taste of a hair change for him later, right?
Yeah. And the brilliant moment where Lala says, "You look like Dad Bod Ken."
Yeah. Amazing.
I'd see there was a photo that I saw online a while ago where we saw Schwartz's new haircut where like the two Toms are walking next to each other. Craig, you might know what I'm talking about. And Schwartz just looks in pretty rough shape, like, getting pretty thick and slouchy and just like, looking and like he's kind of unwell. And Sandoval, as usually, looks, pretty fucking good. Like he is, that's one of the advantages of being a narcissist is that he's kept extremely good care of himself and it looks great. And it just looks like Schwartz is like Sandoval's personal portrait of Dorian Gray. Like he's just absorbing all his aging. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to see. Yeah.
It's like a Ben Affleck getting packages with Dunkin' Donuts energy about him. Like,
yeah, totally.
Very done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you and Sean about Lala and Schwartz being the most interesting people to watch in this episode in that order. I think like you said, the like Tom losing the only thing that he kind of has, which is being this kind of likable guy, and seeing him try to reclaim that. And he's so strategic in how he is approaching it. Like he's gone to James because like James is one of the people that he probably stands a decent chance of getting working his charm on still. Like And James has also got a big boost from Sandoval, and he's, everyone's labeling him as the number one guy in the group. So it makes sense for him to strategically try to get James back on board with him. And then he's also so desperate for Ariana's approval. Like, we see him trying to do everything he can, and even asking Katie and trying to like disarm Katie a bit when she comes over, and by cracking jokes about cutting dingleberries off their dog, and then showing his beetle collection, like really leaning into that juvenile side of him, like a kid who finds a bug and is like bring it to mom to show. And it feels like it kind of works because she like does kind of crack. Like, he still knows how to disarm Katie, maybe the best out of everyone.
I mean, he should. They were married for a long time. Like, of course, she's got to still be like susceptible to some of his charm. Like, that's only normal.
Yeah, totally. So it makes sense that he sees her as maybe an avenue to get back on Ariana's good side. But obviously, Ariana's like not having any of that.
And that kind of makes me, I find it a little moving. It makes me kind of sad, is the Schwartz and Ariana stuff, because they were really, really good friends for a long time, or they seem to have been like really, really good friends. And I do feel like it's a bit of a shame that they have to lose this friendship just on principle. Like, it really feels like Ariana's doing it on principle, like not because she doesn't want Schwartz to be somebody that she can like hang out with and have fun with like she used to. Like, she just feels like it's part of the principle of the thing, is that I have to, cut every tissue surrounding the cancer out. And I feel like that's kind of one of the sad parts of it too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's well within her right to feel betrayed by him, but it is.
I doubt that it's the best thing for her,
Yeah. So let's talk about Ariana a little bit. What were you expecting from her coming into this, and like, what are you hoping to see or expecting to see this season?
I'm hoping like for, I don't know if it's the right word, but maybe some softening, at least with like the friend group, like especially Schwartz. The shot of Schwartz trying to sidle up on her in the restaurant, and he just looks like the saddest dog, I think really got to me.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I understand. Obviously, it sucks to be betrayed that badly, but like Dylan saying, like, how good is it for you to hold all of that, like on principle hatred, and especially with all these complex, like interweaving relationships they all have. So I'm hoping that that kind of opens up a bit more, and maybe there's some resolution, or at least that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, Dylan, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, nothing too surprising from Ariana this episode. It'll be interesting to see how it goes, especially since we get some hints that some people might be starting to lose patience with the party line, that you just have to show complete deference to Ariana and everything. Both in Schwartz showing a little bit of a frustration by calling her like the patron saint of scorned women or something.
Right.
And then in the little preview of the season, we have a line by Lala saying something like, the first person I know to get cheated on and be turned into a god, or something like that.
Yeah.
So if like we do eventually see a bit of like resentment towards her position bubbling through, that's going to maybe make for some very interesting and conflicted emotions.
Yeah, totally. I was thinking about like Ariana and what I am looking for from her story this season, just purely from like a character perspective, and trying to reconcile this want that I have of her to, like you said, Sean, maybe soften, or maybe like temper her anger, or like have some sort of downfall, and have the cast like rally against her, and trying to like think about what that says about like how I consume this. And really just thinking in terms of like a character, where does Ariana go from here? She's got nowhere to go but like down in terms of a journey. She could stay in the same pedestal that she's on and like live there. I don't think that's a compelling thing to watch in television. Obviously, I mean, this is me separating Ariana the character from Ariana the person that plays her. And I think that the journey that is most interesting for me to watch is to see a downfall. She's got nowhere higher to go from here than where she is now. So the logical arc for her is to have a downfall. So I would be curious to see how that plays out, because I think that, the storytellers behind this would easily be able to identify that, and how they manage that with also this this status that Ariana has, above the show. Like, she has been hoisted over, like, outside of the show, and she is this symbol, as Schwartz identifies, this patron saint of scorned women. How do they navigate the fact that she still is on this platform, but her journey as a character, like that arc, can only really go one way from there? So I'm very curious to see how this plays out.
Yeah, she needs to sleep with Peter, I think is what you're saying.
No, I said she's only got somewhere down to go. She can only go down. So,
but though also, let's not forget they did introduce a new bow for her too. So that'll be interesting. I hope we see more of that, because it obviously her arc does need to go somewhere. It can't just stay where it is now. I don't see it necessarily needs to lead to a downfall, but that could be like very dramatically interesting if like some resentment makes some people turn against her, like I was saying. But exploring a new relationship could be another avenue for her to continue to develop, and just to get some more interesting Ariana stuff, instead of her just being kind of in a little protective bubble in a way where she's not really involved in the drama.
Yeah, true. Dylan, did you have any other highlights from this episode?
We've already discussed it, but I want to keep talking about Lala, who was the star of the episode, I think, because this is just really interesting to me. And I'm a big Lala guy, and I just find it very she's just a very, very sensitive person. Like, often the loudest people are actually the most sensitive people, and I think that's something that's very true with Lala. And it's just really interesting and moving for me to see her like grapple with these impulses, where she's like really been towing the line with being kind of one of the girls and presenting a united front against Rachel and Sandoval, especially against Rachel, and of course being an attack dog, because that's kind of like what's expected of her in a way. But we also know that with Lala, she's very wounded and sensitive about having been ostracized from being like one of the girls in the past. Like, she's been treated as somebody who kind of isn't part of the clique and isn't like, isn't on the side of the girls. And I think that's always been a really sore spot for her. She's talked about that a lot. She's very, very sensitive about that. So it's obviously a very big deal for her to start somewhat swimming against the current. That's not something that she's going to do easily, because she is very like scarred and afraid of not being one of the girls, where she is in a position right now where she is kind of really accepted by Katie, Ariana, and Scheana, which hasn't always been the case. And I think it's very hard for her to kind of break with them in any way. So it's really interesting to see her grapple with her empathy and her feeling that she can't shake that. Looking at Raquel, she's seeing a lot of the things that she went through when she was Raquel's age, when she was younger, Rachel's age, sorry. But that feeling of like associating herself with Rachel and with Rachel's situation on the one hand, and seeing herself as a younger woman in her place and wanting to be like helpful in a way that maybe she didn't feel like she'd been helped when she was in that position, versus now being an older woman in a more like socially stable position and not wanting to jeopardize that, because it's been such a sore spot for her of being ostracized in the past. And I just think that's a really, really fascinating dynamic. And I do find it very like emotional too.
Yeah, totally. Because her social position, that's not like a natural born position that she has. That's earned ground. She entered this group as an outsider and had to earn her spot. And so for her to grapple with these emotions that she's got and try to go against grain, like you said, that's very challenging for her to deal with. So yeah, I think that adds a whole element of dimension to her character that's going to be really interesting to watch. And going into this season, I was not expecting Lala to be, the most compelling character night one. I was, kind of expecting more of the same, and we got your favorite good Lala on screen. Yep. And so
you never know which one you're gonna get.
Yeah. Well, hopefully like this growth that we have seen is something that is going to continue this season, because like you said, when Lala is good, she's great.
Yeah. And I mean, it won't. She's going to continue to like have really terrible takes too. Like she's going to continue to waffle around, but that's why she's a fascinating character too. And I also just want to point out, I really enjoyed how she was saying like how she really needs to work on her emotional regulation and stuff. And she's like struggling to control her emotions. But she says that it's, instead of saying like, that's because that's what I need for my own well-being, she says, or else everyone is fucked. I found that really funny.
Yeah, it's a strategy of emotional containment.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have any other highlights, Dylan?
Okay, one more Lala point. Like the little metaphor relating to orcas, a pod of orcas. Yeah, I love a little bit of cetacean knowledge just thrown in there. Good stuff. But when she started saying like we're like a pod of orcas, I expected her to go with like the fact that orcas are a matriarchal society, and was surprised when instead she went with, orcas generally gain members to their pods but do not lose members in their pods, which is mostly true, and that's a fun little metaphor there.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I always love the marine biology fact check that you can provide us with.
You know that I was going to be right on that as soon as somebody makes a whale metaphor.
I didn't even bother marking that down. I knew you were going to handle that. I think we touched on a lot of my highlights, but we haven't really talked about my fave, James. So I'm curious what you guys thought about James so far. One of the things that I really enjoyed was seeing him enter this episode in a place where he's on a high. He's got his shit together. He's got a house now. He's the guy with the pool, and in very the way he's presented is he's got it all together. But I love that the shady hint that we get from production that, this is still this pattern that James has of, being like, oh, I've got everything together. Everything is great, smooth sailing. But then there's slowly cracks emerging. And we got that where he's like, oh, this house is great. It's perfect. And then Allie's like, yeah, but we live right by the airport. And then there's constant airplane rumbling in the background, or when they're talking about building their life together and they're physically building furniture, they're having this discussion while a plane is flying overhead, and we get the shot of the plane, and just showing all these these subtle cracks that we can probably see where, James is painting over all of the cracks and pretending everything is okay.
Mm-hmm.
We also get he's talking to Schwartz, I think, and he's about how he's sober, and he's like, oh no, this is not from Allie, it's all me. And they throw in a little thing from last season of Allie being like, I don't like it when you drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I like James in this episode, which normally I don't. But just to give him a little bouquet, I thought the man looked pretty good. Maybe it's the no drinking, but he had a nice pair of glasses. Good little outfit when he saw Schwartz, except for the fact that it was buttoned at his breastbone. So good for you, James.
Sure. I like that he's saying that he's sober, and then is like, well, it's California sober. I smoke a little bit of weed, and then describes smoking weed all day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got to have some kind of release.
Yeah.
You can't just drink 6 espressos every day.
Well, you need the hippie speedball to balance out.
Yeah.
So question, Dylan, what do you think was a better impression? The Clinton impression that Tom Schwartz did in his confessional,
Very
or
good.
Raquel's Stadler and Waldorf impression from last season?
Well, I mean, Raquel did prop comedy, so that's great. But Schwartz's Clinton was surprisingly very good, I thought. I thought that was a really good Clinton. I thought he really nailed that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the better one.
I think Schwartz was probably a class clown in middle school, and he'd be the right age where that killed with his teachers in 8th grade.
He's workshopped that over the past 20 years.
Yeah.
25, I guess. Yeah.
I like that he chose that as a way to exonerate himself when it's Clinton basically lying under oath.
Can you perjure yourself on Bravo?
Yeah. Did you guys have any other highlights?
I like that Scheana's parenting strategy is just lying, apparently.
Just pure manipulation.
Yeah, she is the potty. Run with it. We'll say she did.
She parents like it's a reality show, trying to manipulate the situation.
Yes. It's all about appearances. Yeah.
I think we covered most of my highlights. Let's get into our picks for All-Stars. So if you're going to draft someone to your Bravo fantasy team, who are you picking?
Craig?
Yeah.
I just realized I wanted to point out one weird thing I forgot to about Sandoval. Why did he block a toddler on social media?
Sean, do you really think Summer Moon is running her own account?
I get that it's weird to make a account for your toddler, but I think it's more weird to block a toddler as
I don't think it's that weird because that's a Scheana alternate account, right? He's blocking her various alternate accounts. That doesn't seem that weird.
If Scheana is spamming him from it, but the optics of blocking a 3-year-old are great to me.
Sure, but it's not her account.
Yeah, but also it would also be weird if he blocked Scheana and the podcast, but not.
I still want to see the Summer Moon.
It would be way funnier if he just blocked Summer Moon. That would be the funniest thing to do.
Well, I would be sending close friends stories from my trip to New Zealand.
Let's go with our picks. Sean, who's on your team?
Well, to go third star is going to be actually James. Second star Schwartz. First star Lala.
Right on. Yeah, that's bang on with mine as well. How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue with Lala as being the star and Schwartz as being the runner-up, and third star to the Weevil or Beetle. Very convincing playing dead. And he's probably been doing that for weeks. And Schwartz is just yeah, you're so good at this. You sure you don't want some of this kiwi I chopped up for you? Okay, maybe next week.
I'll change my third pick, and just to keep things interesting, on the topic of playing dead, we did get a few frames of Ken just shuffling through the bar in the hero shots that we got.
Yeah, he's not playing dead; he's playing alive.
Yeah.
He doesn't get a hero shot; he gets just a little B-roll standing behind the counter. Ken's still here,
just so awkwardly moving. It almost looks like he is shuffling and not aware that he's bumping into tables and just jittering around the room. Glad to see he's still kicking though. That's good to see. I think that about does it. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up here?
Just that I'm excited to see what happens, to see Dad Bod Ken and everything else.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Sandoval thrown into the mix and see his his strenuous grieving, I'm sorry expressions, and that tone of voice he always uses. I can't wait for that to enter the discussion.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Sean. Do you want to let people know where they can find you? Or if you don't want them to find you, do you have anything that you want to recommend to them?
I'm pretty hungry, so I'm going to recommend Goodlands Cafe in Winnipeg, because I'm going to get lunch from there. It's on Sargent's. Good falafel.
There you go. If you're in Winnipeg, Goodlands. Dylan, how about you?
You can find me writing about movies on Substack, Dylan Ferguson. Just look for Dylan Ferguson on there. I should be having my ranking of the Academy Awards Best Picture nominees up there pretty soon. Just got one more I got to see.
Right on. I'm Craig Midwinter. You can't really find me. Oh, I did get a letterboxd this week, so I'm going to start at least rating and logging the movies that I'm watching. Yeah. So if you like that, I think I'm Craig J. Midwinter on there, so give me a follow. But yeah, I'm on social media, just on Instagram as our Bravo Outsider account. So you can find me there. Oh, or if you're on Peloton, I got a Peloton and I'm on the Peloton Bravo Squad. There's an Instagram account for that too, which you should follow. So if you want to join the Peloton, you can maybe find me there.
Nice. Was that an average?
Yeah. Until next week, keep on wifing.